If you keep finding yourself in the same bad relationships, the same toxic patterns over and over again, and you can't seem to get out or to break the cycle, this is for you. Hey everybody, I'm Sara Vandenburg, owner of the Tenali Healing Services. I'm glad you're here. Let's dive in. I found that life is about patterns. Everything works in cycles and in seasons, down to the universe, the world that we live in. And it turns out that bad relationships and toxic patterns happen that way also. There are 6 different phases in a bad relationship, so let's go ahead and look at what those 6 are going to be before we dive into each one individually. The first stage is charm and charisma. The second stage is isolation. The third stage is emotional abuse. The fourth stage is negative control. The fifth stage is physical abuse. And the sixth stage is murder or homicide. So let's go ahead and dive into each one of those. The first stage is charm and charisma. If someone pushed you down the stairs on the first date, you probably wouldn't go on a second one. And I'm not just talking about being polite. It's normal to be polite on a first date. Everybody wants to be nice on the first date. It's very normal for somebody to open the car door for you, or to open the restaurant door for you, or to tell you that you're even looking attractive. What's not common or what's not healthy in this kind of a relationship is going to be when someone is overtly charming. It's all about you're the most beautiful person in the world they've ever seen all at once. They can't believe that they've never met anybody like you. You're the only person in the whole world who's exactly like you. It's putting all of the spotlight on you, and if you ask them any questions about them, they generally deflect those questions back onto you, which can feel really good because they're all about you. They really care and they're listening. They're hanging on to every word. They're asking follow-up questions, and it's all about you. They want to know everything there is to know about your life, and they are love bombing immediately. They might even use the L word or the love word in the first date. It's overtly charming and charisma. The second stage is the isolation stage. Now, it's not usually as overt as somebody saying something like, you can never talk to your family again, because if somebody told us that on the second date, we would likely never talk to them again. I mean, who are they to tell us who we can or can't talk to so early on? So a lot of times, the isolation stage starts by them scheduling conflicting events that already go with the things that you already had, which make you believe or think that you're the one who's choosing your new intimate partner over the people you have chosen previously in the past. For example, let's say I'm going to have my sister's birthday party this weekend, and she has invited me, so I tell my new partner, I'm going to go to my sister's birthday party this weekend. I'd love to hang out with you, but I already have other plans. And they're like, yeah, they're so understanding. They get it. The next day, they come to me and they say, hey, Sara, I just got tickets to the baseball game. It's box seat tickets. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I don't know if this opportunity is ever going to come again. I'm so excited. I got 2 tickets, and I'd really love to have you. Oh, wait, I know that you have your sister's birthday party, so I totally get it. But this is such a fun opportunity, and it just does happen to be at the same time as your sister's birthday party, and I totally would understand if you wanted to go to that. But I hope that you'll consider that maybe you'll want to come to me to the baseball game, as this is such an amazing opportunity. Which one do you think that you might want to do? You've been to the last 23 of your sister's birthday parties, and I'm sure you'll be to the next one. Yeah, just consider it. Let me know. Let me know tomorrow. Yeah, don't even answer me today. Let me know tomorrow what it is that you want to do. Okay, so they'll give you 2 events that totally conflict with each other and make you choose between the 2. And early on in a relationship, they'll give you those points. Like, yeah, you've been to the last 23 birthday parties. You can celebrate with your sister another time. But they won't put it on you. They'll make you believe that you're the one who's making this decision. And after you've made this decision so many times to choose them, because they really wanted you there, all of a sudden you look up and you realize you haven't talked to your family or your friends in weeks, and then months go by, and all of a sudden you're feeling isolated. Now, stage 1 and 2 has to be completely locked in before we can go to stage 3. Because stage 3 is emotional abuse. So this is where it starts to get a little more overt than it is covert. So what those 2 words mean is overt is out in the open, And covert means it's kind of nuanced. It's kind of hidden in there, and you may not see it coming. It may not be as in your face or as abrupt. But that's coming. So stages 1 and 2 really have to be locked in, because you have to believe that they're a really great person, that they're all about you, that you've never felt this way before, and you have to be isolated. So with emotional abuse, it's not usually as abrupt in the beginning as saying something like, "You're stupid," right? It's going to be something like a question. They're going to phase it as a question. And so it's going to sound, "Are you sure you want to eat that? It looks like you're gaining some weight." "No, I was just curious. I was just asking. Yeah, it was just a question. It was just an honest question." But they're going to start asking you questions that make you think about yourself and the way that you look and the way that you've been behaving. And so they're going to start putting it on you, and there's shame underneath all of these questions. After those kinds of questions begin to really be spoken and you start to question your own reality, they might even start to say things like, "Honey, you're crazy for thinking that. I don't think you're fat. I don't think that at all. I was just wondering, because I know that you'd had something else that morning, and I know that you said that you've been trying to lose weight." So then they'll start using your own words against you and making it seem as if they have your best interests at heart. But they'll start throwing in those words, "Honey, I think you're crazy right now." They'll start throwing in words like that, crazy, stupid, all of those things. And it's going to start to get inside you, and it's going to make you wonder, wow, am I crazy? It's going to cause you to question your own reality. This could turn into gaslighting by them eventually just saying, "You are crazy." Okay, so gaslighting is anytime somebody makes you believe that your reality is not real and that they are the only person who can tell you about your reality from now on. So I don't even know anymore. Now I need them for information. They're my sole source of information on this topic. They're the expert. I'm not the expert of myself anymore. It's become them. And anytime I have an opinion, I don't feel like I'm smart or like I even know what's going on. So I have to look to them to tell me the truth. And then it could get really abrupt. It could be the kind of in your face, "You're fat, you're ugly, you're not smart." Any of those really shaming statements. But you see, now what's happened is that because of the charm and charisma, which that never fully goes away, that's sprinkled into every single phase. So it's just enough to make us feel like, "Oh yeah, well, I know who they really are. They are just having a bad day. I know who they were when I met them. It was work." And we start making excuses for their behavior. And we're also isolated at this point. So we've already told our friends and family how amazing this person is, how we've never felt this way before, how we think that this is going to go differently than all of our other relationships, and we haven't talked to them in weeks or months. So it'd be really kind of awkward to go back to our family and be like, "Hey, you know that person that I said was really all that? I don't really know if they are anymore." So because phases 1 and 2 are locked in, they can begin to start to tear you down and you not do anything about it yet. And then after phase 3 is phase 4, which is the negative control. Now, negative control is anytime somebody tries to control you by taking something away. So it could be as abrupt as saying, "I'm going to kill you if you don't do what I want you to do," or "I'm going to kill myself." Two sides of the same coin. It's a very similar concept of, I'm going to take a life so that you do what I want you to do. It doesn't usually start there. It usually starts with, "I'm going to remove myself from the equation. I'm going to give you the silent treatment if you don't do what I want you to do. Or because you didn't do what I wanted you to do, I'm too upset to speak to you, and I'm not going to speak to you for a couple of days." Because now that you're completely dependent on them, they give you your sole source of esteem. They're the ones that make you feel good about yourself. They're the ones that give you your reality. It's the most jarring thing they can do to step away from you and to let you kind of flounder on your own now. And so now that drives the anxiety to make you want them even more. So they're removing themselves from the equation, and you're feeling anxious because your reality is you don't know exactly where it stands without them. Who are you without them? Well, how are you going to function without them? Will your family even accept you back now without them? Your family might even have fallen in love with this person as you have, because you've portrayed them to be this kind of a magical relationship. And then if you have pets or children, it's very possible that they start to use that as an attempt to try to control you. So I will hurt the dog, or I will hurt the cat, or I will hurt the kids if you don't do what I want you to do. And do you really want them to be hurt? So at the most extreme, it's going to be harming you, them, or another living creature to try to get you to do what they want you to do. And at the lower end, it's going to be them removing themselves, although that feels very extreme. It's going to be them removing themselves from the equation to try to control you. And after this starts physical abuse. And it almost never starts with a right hook punch to the face, okay? It's almost always some form of two open hand push or a grab. And if somebody grabs you, that is a physical attack. Nobody has the right to grab you ever without your consent, unless you're about to step out in front of a bus and somebody grabs your shoulder for a second and says, whoa, hey, I'm sorry. Did you not see the bus coming? Okay, so maybe in some circumstances like that. But really and truly, an open hand push and a grab is just as much an attack on your body, and potentially it could be your life as a choke to the neck, or strangulation, or any kind of those really physical attacks that we think of when we think of, oh my God, I'm being physically attacked. They lead into another. If someone has the ability to hurt and disrespect your body on a small scale, they have the ability to escalate that. I'm a black belt martial artist. Actually, I'm a triple ranking black belt martial artist, so I have 3 of them. And through the course of my martial arts training, I've done a lot of women's self-defense. And one of the things that my instructors always said is that a lot of women, when he does women's self-defense, come to women's self-defense classes because they've been attacked, not before. And almost always they'll say, I didn't know I was being attacked before it was too late, until it was too late. And almost always it started with an open hand push or a grab. And if they'd known right then, the severity of what had just happened, they may have removed themselves from the equation, called for help, or just flat out sprinted for their life. But they didn't. They just kind of stood like a deer in the headlights, like, what just happened? What did you just do? And then it turned into an escalation of punching, kicking, biting, scratching, things like that. And so now they feel unsafe in their world, so they go to a martial arts class. So I just want you to know that is actually the statistics too. It's almost always an open hand push or a grab, and that is a physical attack, and it can escalate from there. If you've already gotten to the late stage 5, if you've even gotten to the early stage 5 with an open hand push or a grab, this is the point where you need to bring in professionals into the equation to make sure that you can leave safely, because I do want you to know that this stage 6 is right around the corner. Not all relationships get here. Even if your relationships get to stage 5, I want you to know that this last stage it's not inevitable. But because it does happen, in fact, it happens rather frequently, I want us to take some time to help us understand where the cycle ends, if it doesn't end in a breakup or you leaving them or whatever that looks like. And this stage can end in murder. These cycles end in murder every day. In 2023, 1 woman every 10 minutes was killed. That's roughly 140 women a day by their intimate partner. In the United States, 1 in 5 homicides was a victim killed by an intimate partner. And for women, it's over half of the homicides in the United States. These statistics are alarming, but unfortunately, it is the reality. So I think it's worth talking about. And we also can't fully understand questions like, well, why didn't she just leave? Why didn't they get help? Until we really look at this reality. Because until we really understand this reality and accept it as the truth, we can't understand these answers to questions such as, well, why didn't she just leave? Why didn't they get help? Because the most dangerous time in these relationships is actually after you've made the decision to leave. Over 70% of these murders happen after you make the decision to leave and after you leave them. The general energy is, well, if I can't have you, nobody can. Now, all of this to say, this doesn't mean don't leave them. Please don't hear me say that. But what it does mean is if your relationship has already escalated to stage 5, especially late stage 5, where you now have blood and bruises as the result of the physical abuse that you've been going through, or something else has been injured, such as your child or your pet, we may need to plan very seriously what it looks like for you to leave that relationship and be safe, to make sure that all of your property, which is the least of the concerns really, but to make sure that you and your body and your children and your pets, every living creature can remain safe. If your property can remain safe also, I understand that that's really important, and we can plan for that. So you may need professional help. So how do we get out of these relationships? And how do we know how to spot the signs while we're getting into new relationships to know if this pattern is even starting? If you're in one of these relationships and it's in the early stages, so stage 1, 2, or 3, what you can do is to start setting really healthy and strong boundaries and bring back in your support, especially if you realize that you've isolated yourself. So intentionally make the decision to go out with your friends, to go to some community support groups, even to go hang out with your family over your relationship, and just kind of test how those boundaries are. Are they receptive to you doing that? Because if they're receptive to that, it very well could be that this thing could spin in the other direction. It could be that you didn't recognize what was happening. It could be that they didn't recognize what was happening, but it doesn't need to progress from there if they're receptive to those boundaries and you bring back in your community of support. If they're really rough with those boundaries, if they say, no, you can't go, if they start trying to control your time and who you're hanging out with, now's the time to probably end the relationship or bring in a professional. Maybe you need to talk about what it looks like to have couples therapy if that's something that you're wanting to remain in this relationship with. Maybe a professional could help you guys work through what's fair and what's not fair. It could be that this is just a great time to end the relationship. If someone is over controlling of your time, this is grounds. This is grounds to cut it and say, I need to have my own social life. You can't control all of what I do all the time. And I'm not willing to continue this relationship. If we're in the early stages, it's probably also a new relationship, somewhere in the first couple of months of the relationship, 6 or so months. So now would be a good time to recognize, yeah, this isn't the one that I wanted it to be. There's so many people out there in the world. I'm just going to choose to end this now. If you're in the later stage, always bring in a professional. Always. Call a hotline. I'll put some links down in the bottom. Talk to a therapist. Even talk to a friend or a pastor at your church. Bring in other eyes so that you're not the only person who's looking at the situation. And if you're just starting to get back out there and date, some of the first things you can recognize is the stage 1. Are they love bombing you? Are they buying you really expensive dinners or gifts on the first couple of dates? While that can feel really good, it is a huge red flag. You can also start kind of pushing some boundaries early on. I go to my Bible study every Wednesday night. I go to my sister's birthday party every year. Whatever it is that you're wanting to keep in your life in that relationship, let them know about it and see early on how they react to it. So if they try to schedule conflicting events, be very certain about the things that you do want to attend and the things that you don't. Don't compromise your values, especially this early on in the relationship. And if you're in stage 3, which is about the turning point of where we're early stage or late stage, something you can do is begin setting very strong boundaries about the comments that they make that cause you to feel shame. So don't make any more comments about my body or about what I'm eating. And see if they're able to refrain. Because if they refrain, it could be that you just needed to voice what it was that was bothering you and then they make changes. If they don't make changes or they lock down even harder, now's a good time to recognize that they're not able to keep your boundaries. And maybe we need to set stronger boundaries, or maybe we just need to be out of this relationship entirely. And if they come back and say something like, you're being too sensitive, I didn't mean it that way, now's a really good time to recognize that they're not willing to take your emotions very seriously. They're not willing to take your feedback seriously. And they're not willing to take accountability. And one more time, just because of the severity of the topics, if you are in stage 4 or 5, and especially late stage 5, which means you've had bruises or blood as the result of the physical abuse that you've been through, always bring in a professional. Even if it's somebody at your church, they can recommend other local resources if you need more than that. And the quick rule of thumb that I tell people is that if it costs you your sleep and your standards, it's going to cost you more later. So it's worth looking at right now. So why do we get into these relationships in the first place? Well, it's our own lack of self-esteem. We feel as if we need somebody else to validate us. And that's why stage 1 is so effective, that love bombing. You're the most beautiful person I've ever seen. It just feels so good when someone is all about us. And that's what keeps us locked in these relationships the entire rest of the relationship, is because that love bombing is sprinkled in here or there. And they tear our self-esteem down even more than it already was, so that when we get that love bombing, it just feels so good and it helps us feel whole and complete. What you need to do going into a new relationship is just recognize that and become unhookable, as I call it. Real love won't try to hook you. It won't try to trick you. And it won't be one way this day and one day completely different. It's going to be a lot more consistent. One of the things we can do to begin to break out of these cycles is for you to love bomb yourself. Tell yourself, I am amazing. Even if you don't believe it yet, that's okay. You're talking to your subconscious. If you say it enough, you'll begin to believe it. You see, a lot of people ask me about trust, and I always tell them, a lot of times we think we don't trust people because of the things that have happened to us. And that's a part of the equation, that's a part of the puzzle. But really, it's because you're the only person who's heard every lie you've ever told. That's why you don't trust yourself. It's because you're the one who's lying to yourself, or you believe the lies that you've heard from others. So you look for outside support and for someone to esteem you. And that's why these patterns of relationships continue to happen over and over and over again. If you're a person who says, I'm not good at boundaries, one of the things that you can do is begin setting boundaries with yourself. It could be, I'm going to drink 1 bottle of water every day. It could be something very small. I'm going to set an alarm clock, and when I get up in the morning, I'm going to work out for 20 minutes. They don't have to be big. They don't have to be super expansive and life-changing, although they will be, because every single one of these little things is going to end up changing your life over a period of time. But if you don't want to begin with other people, start with yourself. Affirm yourself, set boundaries with yourself, and then eventually that's going to be able to go outside of yourself, and you're going to be able to do that with others. I hope this video has helped you look at your own relationships and the patterns that you have in your life. I'd love for you to share your stories down in the bottom. I'd love to hear what you guys are going through. If you want another video, let me know what it is that you want me to talk about. Like, subscribe, and thank you for watching.